I had my miracle tested this week.
Oh, yes,
You know, you're going to like this a lot.
I am. I am. I'm ready. I'm ready. Tell
Right.
me.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. Well, Judith, how are you? I hear you've not been so well this week, but you don't talk about it too much.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it, Nicola, because I don't want the listeners to think I'm a sickly thing. And it's rather funny, as I was just saying to you, in the 10 or 12 years in which you've known me, I've never been sick. And yet in the 10 weeks we've been running this podcast, I've been ill twice, which is quite funny. But you'll like this one. I think you'll like this a lot. I was working out how many days I'd lost to sickness in a busy career spanning, I think, a self-employed career of, I don't know, it's something like, it's the best part of 40 years. And if I was 22 and I'm 59, so it's 37 years. And I was thinking back in my mind, how many times have I been off work? And then I realised I'd lost more days in those 40 years. It would have to be, say, in the first half of the 40 years, not the second half, but to something I'm calling SURS, S-U-R-S, and it stands for Sudden, Unexpected, Romantic Situations. You know, where your boyfriend turns up unexpectedly and you take the day off. I've taken more days off for romance than I've taken off for sickness in a 40-year career, which I think is a good way to start the show.
It is. It's lovely. And I would like to just direct our readers to your blog, because you have written an epic post of 3,500 words on the events of the last week. And I know you're going to talk a little bit more about it in the later section. But I would just like to say about, monster blog posts that flow out of you when you've had an experience. Do not hesitate to write up blog posts, even if they don't seem to be about your specific business, because you're probably going to end up on page one, if not top three for Google for the word norovirus. And I have actually been riding high for the keywords IKEA stand-up desk UK for the last 2 weeks.
Actually, Nicola, I partly wrote that blog post for you because you were always asking me for a long one, so I gave you a long one, didn't I?
Yeah, exactly. And interesting, this week I've actually heard from IKEA, because if you put in any combination of that phrase, stand-up desk IKEA UK, you will find me in the top three. And I have had surges of traffic from it some weeks, 200, 300 visitors. And it is almost my target market. Well, because most people who do internet marketing do sit down a lot. So anyway, IKEA came knocking on my inbox door and said, "Hello, that blog post of yours? We've started stocking stand-up desks now. Would you like to put a link to this page on your blog post?" And I went back to them quick as a quick thing, thinking on her feet. Where's my affiliate link then? And
Absolutely.
They came back and said, it was the head of search, actually. She came back, she said, it's against our brand values to do affiliate links. I said, well, it's a bit like against your brand values to let people order online, as you will have gleaned from my blog post. It's a bit of an ordeal to actually get to a shop.
Yes.
And she said, she said, perhaps for the benefit of your readers, you would link to our stand-up desk page. I said, I've got a really good idea. Why don't you send me an IKEA stand-up desk? And I will review it and put pictures in that blog post of me
marvelous
happily at it.
Yeah.
She hasn't come back to me on this one, but fingers crossed, a IKEA stand-up desk, right-hand side curvy thing in pale wood with black legs will be winging its way to me very soon.
I tell you, it's quite interesting that she came to you without a win-win proposition.
Yes, that was interesting, that wasn't it?
Yes, that's what I would call most unenlightened.
Well,
What she thought was that you would be, well, she thought she would be, you would be delighted to be connected to IKEA in that way somehow. I'm getting my head around the marketing, side of that. I can't quite.
She wasn't a marketing person; she was a search person. But the thing I said to her, what in my longer email, because I actually at the moment connect to a rather neat gadget that works beautifully with any table and looks rather gorgeous. That's on Amazon. So through my Amazon affiliate link, and I do make that. And I, the fact that I get about 100 visits a week on average, it's surely got to be worth £495 of their money to get a live link to a live website where people who are interested in the topic can go straight through and order one online.
Especially if it's coming up high in the search results.
Yeah, well, exactly. So that was an interesting thing. I had my miracle tested this week.
Oh, yes.
You're going to like this a lot.
I am. I'm ready. Tell me.
Well, the reason that the miracle happened was, a lovely client of the kind that I'm looking to attract more of appeared, who sadly turned out to be. So I thought, oh no, Jude's not going to like this. My miracle went away. But then, and I managed to work quite hard on my mind about that, my attitude, and I conquered my disappointment, and I just moved on, and I was rewarded by that by another miracle first thing this Monday morning, where someone popped up and did something that I was completely not expecting, and it completely made it just made my week, it's made my next month, really. So that was rather lovely. Carrie, remember Carrie? Chocolate?
I do. Chocolate Carrie, blonde entrepreneur, or blondepreneur, I think.
I like that domain name a lot. The blondepreneur, yes.com. Yeah. Well, she's written a rather lovely blog post on the Business Startup Show website and linked to me, which is really nice because obviously she's linked to my personal site, and that's where I talk about this podcast and all things that we do together. So it's been a rather splendid week for me, and I'm sorry to hear that you haven't been so well, but you could write a fury.
I will. I'll just tell you one more point on this. Actually, I was your miracle came about, and I pointed this out to you last week because before Christmas you said out loud on the podcast that you wanted more of those ideal clients like the man you've done the VIP session with. Yes. So, you were taking it your word.
I'm still working with him, actually. He's lovely.
Yes. Yeah, but the point is you asked for it and you received it.
Yeah.
And last week, I was listening, the night before last, I listened to the one we recorded last week. And coincidentally, what I've manifested is a week of infection. And I used the word infected twice in last week's podcast.
Oh, dear.
I know.
Really?
So what I've realised is I'm very powerful in my words, and I must watch very carefully what I ask for.
And the whole thing about visualising, I ever since I was a small child, I've always visualised what I wanted in my mind's eye. And I do think, I went through that obviously terrible phase where I wasn't able to do it, but I think I'm back on form with the visualisation. Yeah. So
good girl.
I'm imagining this lovely desk going around the corner, and as I'm sitting here.
But now I'm imagining you standing at it, aren't you going to be standing?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yes. Yeah. But the point about it is it's hydraulic or something. It's got some mechanism where you can stand up and you don't have to move all your stuff. It just goes up and down. It's actually,
yes. I have seen them before actually in the last day job I had, which was ages ago. My boss there, he had a bad back, and he would lift his desk up and drop his desk down, and he would also sit on one of those big balls.
Oh yes, the exercise balls.
Because that strengthens the muscles in your back.
Yeah, and your core. Yeah, I'll have to get one of those, won't I? If my desk.
You don't have to sit on it all the time. 20 minutes a day first of all, working up to an hour a day type of thing.
Yeah. Oh well, these things make the day a little bit more entertaining, don't they?
They do.
What's fueled your fire this week then?
Miraculous results, actually. If you read last Friday's newsletter, you'll have seen me documenting it. A met a guru of hers, and S had a 4-figure day, and you had one, and R got a magazine speaking opportunity, and I manifested a client whose websites I love, and I accidentally drank this thing called Little. Be careful what you wish for. As soon as you start, this is what I'm saying. As soon as we start talking about things, they turn up and we go, oh, that's a coincidence, isn't it? I just love that. I just love seeing that happening. So really, it was the short answer to this one, because last week's podcast was a very long one, Nicola, so we might try and keep it short today. The short answer to this is, miraculous results, asking for it and seeing it come true, and quite quickly.
Yes, that's very nice. I'm very open to more miracles happening. That's for sure.
Yes, and I think depending on how prosaic one is, they're not all, as you said last week, they don't always look like miracles or feel like miracles or sound like miracles, or we wouldn't necessarily give it that name. But I think a preparedness to just go, oh, isn't that lovely, is the same sort of thing.
Yeah, because let's face it, the last thing we want is a whole horde of pilgrims beating their way to shore and by sea.
No.
I don't think Sam could cope, really.
No. Or you, darling. Imagine that. You draw back the curtains one morning and miracle seekers are sitting on your lawn.
Oh, I've just had a brilliant flashback to the Life of Brian film.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
I love that film so much. I'm always quoting bits from it at the children, and they haven't got a clue what I'm talking about, so I have to make them go and watch the video.
Do they quote bits of their favourite comedy now?
They're not really into. Well, they talk. We quite like Mickey Flanagan, the one who talks about being out.
Yes, I love him.
Yeah, they're not really into comedy. They're much more into music and stuff like that.
Yeah, my brother was a big Monty Python fan, and he still quotes it 20, 30, 40 years later. And his children do the same, but they do it from things like The Office.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's true. Yes, but Monty Python. I mean, I'll never forget the parrot who is deceased. I mean, my dad actually had an album, a Monty Python album. That shows how long ago this was, back in the 70s.
I remember.
Listen to it with much joy, I must say. What's fueled my fire? Simplifying and streamlining.
Oh.
I've been stripping everything back, inspired again by Mr. Shramko, who's made a big impression on me. I've been listening to all of his podcasts. I've been galloping through them. He must feel a bit stalked by now, I must say, if he knew. Yes, I've been simplifying and streamlining since I decided over Christmas that this year was all going to be about the podcasts, Facebook ads, and coaching and mentoring. But I've been making my website around the coaching and mentoring much, much more streamlined. So James's model is quite interesting actually for anyone listening. It's a brave model, I think, but it's a very effective one. He has a membership site that is, it's not particularly beautiful looking inside, but it's extremely effective. And it's $79 a month. So you join his I can't remember what it's called now. But anyway, you join his normal level at $79 a month, and he puts absolutely everything in it. So whenever he does a podcast, it goes in there. Whenever he does a live event, and he does organise yearly live events, he puts all of the videos inside. So it's monstrous value. He once a month he creates a new training course, and when we talk about training courses, we're not talking about the great big massive things that we remember, Judith. We're talking about perhaps 2 hours worth of training divided up into 10-minute clips, and that's a trend I'm definitely seeing and enjoying myself. It's much easier to watch 10 minutes of something and then think, oh yeah, I could do another 10 minutes, or no, I've got to go and do something else now. But to consume training videos in 10-minute bites is much easier. So he does a new training course every month. Anyway, absolutely everything, whatever he does, it all goes into this thing. So you can imagine it's great value for $79 a month. And it means that everyone who wants to work with James just goes and signs up, because it's a complete no-brainer. And then he's got one other level, which is the I can't remember what he calls it, but it's $1,500 a month, and you get weekly group calls with James, plus access to everything that's in the thing in membership area, of course. It's about everyone getting access to all the training, but it's just staggered on how much access you get to James. And
I've loved this model ever since you mentioned it, and you mentioned it in quite a long time ago, like 6 or 8 weeks ago in these podcasts. And I remember thinking at the time, "Ooh, that's an attractive model." It's even more attractive for you than it is for me because you create that sort of content and I don't. But anybody that we know that's a creator that constantly wants to, invent stuff like that, it's a very nice model, isn't it?
It is, and it means that all your content's very leverageable because he's got lots of clips, like 3-minute clips from the his live, the speakers at his live event on the outside of the website to encourage you to join the $79 a month level.
Yeah.
And you get inside, and the whole 1 hour presentations are there, so you can watch people like Justin Brooke, who's a genius at traffic. And he gets it transcribed. Every podcast episode he does for his 5 podcasts gets transcribed. It all goes inside there. And
now, hang on, relax a moment. Before you make that next point, you haven't, James Schramko, you've told us, you couldn't remember the name of the level, but you haven't told us his website.
Superfastbusiness.com.
Marvellous. Now you may carry on.
Yes, thank you very much. And the reason I'm liking it is because I'm realised that with not this podcast particularly, with my own podcast, we've just hit 100 episodes with Rich Sheffrin as the 100th episode, and I'm getting them all transcribed. So you've got an hour's worth of audio with transcriptions, if for the people who like to read, and there are so many lessons in there. So I could be taking, because I get them to do the 3 tips, I could be taking each of those tips bits out. Not me, obviously. I'm going to outsource this because this is admin.
Yeah.
And putting them into the 3 mind, money, and marketing areas in a membership site. I'm constantly creating content through different means, and it'll be lovely to have one place to put it all.
Last week, you'll remember that I said we would return to marketing over and over, and we would call it Marketing 101 because we're going to strip it back to basics for the newbies. And so the same rules apply, Nicola, which is forget 3/4 of what you know and speak at half the speed.
My daughter found that highly hilarious when she heard me.
Did she? Okay, so this is a 2-point question.
Okay.
Email newsletters, why? How is content and purpose different from blogs?
We actually tend to disagree a little bit on this one, don't we?
I know, it's going to be fun, isn't it?
Because I'm actually sitting looking at your latest e-zine that's just come in.
Well, of course, I'm looking at it too because you're making me look at your screen.
It's lovely, by the way. It looks absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, okay.
So let me repeat. So let's start with the first half of the question.
Okay.
The first half of the question is I'm newish online. So I'm talking in my client's voice, and Judith keeps telling me I've got to have an opt-in and a newsletter. Why?
Okay, because your potential prospects and tribe are very distracted by lots of things every day. We take in ridiculous amounts of information. Apparently, we take in more in a day than a peasant of yore would have taken in 100 years. And so there is lots and lots of
Who is this peasant of yore? I love the idea of him.
Well, he lived in the 14th century and he just got up in his shack. And
he only lived until he was 27, Nicola. He couldn't
exactly. So he took in even less information, didn't he? Because he had such a short life. But in his walk between his hovel and his field, where he had to till the land, I'm about to burst into some sort of hymn any minute. We plough the fields and scatter. He was not bombarded with advertising messages to the extent that we are now. So it's about attention. You have to keep your potential tribe member engaged with you, and they have visited your website. They found you somehow. They've put their name and email in because they want to hear from you. That's a very important point. They want to hear from you. So it's your duty, really, to remind them that you exist, to remind them of your value, and that you can help them. And e-zine's a really good way of doing that.
Okay, now before we go on to the second point, how do I, newbie online person, make them want to hear from me?
What, initially, or after they come to your website?
Once they're at my website and they're hovering on opting in, how do I demonstrate that I'm wantable to hear from? I don't know, I've lost myself now, but you know what I'm saying? So when you said, they want to hear from you, why there's the question. Why are people going to want to hear from me when there's so much noise in the ether?
Because something you've said on your website has struck a chord. You've either talked about something in your own life and business that has made them think, oh, this person might understand me, or you've outlined a problem or a solution that they've been looking for, a problem they've got or a solution they want.
Okay, very good. And so the newsletter thing, you always taught me it was permission. When they give me their email address, it's my permission to market to them for life.
Yeah.
Which I like, permission marketing.
Yes, it's the actual marketer's expression, which I'll share, is until they buy or die.
Yes, okay.
But that's a little bit not so nice.
No, I don't mind it actually, because I can get humour out of that.
Okay.
Do you think, how is the content different, and how is the purpose different from a blog?
Well, I don't think it is really. You do a really good job of writing a separate e-zine to your blog content, but you do occasionally link to your blog content if you want people to read more on a topic. I do the same, but I'm not so. I used to put all my content into my e-zine and then archive it afterwards on the blog, and it was a very good discipline for me to make me create new content every week. Now I feel much more drawn to creating content straight onto the blog, and then so my e-zine, which goes out this morning, in fact, tends to be a very quick roundup of everything that's been happening in the world and on my blog, so with lots of links.
Yeah,
which I was taking a risk with, because apparently, in fact, you're doing lots of things they tell you not to do, get email through, but your email seems to be coming through fine to me now.
Well, it didn't for a while for you. Do you remember you didn't see it for a week or two?
Well, it was longer than that, Judith. I didn't see it for about 6 months.
Oh, I think I cut you off the list at that point. But I think once you were back on the list, there were a couple of weeks just before Christmas where it went missing.
Well, yeah, I had to go hunting for it, and as soon as I found it and started engaging with it, that's a real lesson for us. As soon as I found it, started reading it and clicking it, and moved it into my primary folder in Gmail.
I see. Became more visible. Yeah.
So
I did experiment before Christmas with cutting out the things that they say make it not appear easily in people's inbox. So I took out the titles, I took out the graphics. Didn't make any difference to the number of people that opened it, so I've stuck them back in again because I think they look prettier.
They do look prettier, and it's nice to read. To be honest, that kind of thing would extend the time it would take me to send an e-zine to the point where it probably wouldn't go. So
what?
Well, because you use a template, don't you?
Well, doesn't Aweber and MailChimp all use a template?
Well, no,
I don't have to create a template. It's been created for me. I've got one. I just use the same one every week. I just click on it and fill it in.
Yes, well, I got a template as well, so I could theoretically do that. But I found I spent an awful lot of time making it look pretty.
Well, you know why? Sorry about this, and you're not going to like this, but that's why I've come away from Aweber twice, because the templates cause all the glitches in Aweber. In MailChimp, they don't, and I know why we would use one against the other. But in MailChimp, there's no hassle whatsoever with the template. None. Zero.
Yes, but you're sacrificing a huge part of your marketing to be on MailChimp.
Yeah, but I'm doing it for different reasons, remember? I mean, the reason why I love sending out this newsletter every week is because primarily I'm a writer and I want to communicate through the written word.
Yeah, but you don't have my tribe series, do you?
What?
You don't have it?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I can have all of that now. All of that functionality has come to MailChimp. Okay, you have to pay for it, but not very much.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. Well, that was always my main reason for not using MailChimp, was the lack of follow-up.
Oh, you see, I think internet marketers think that Aweber is better in some way, but actually quite a lot of my clients are struggling with the fact that, the double opt-in issues. But actually, I don't want to discuss that today. So from what you're saying is the content is not different from a blog. Is the purpose of a newsletter different from a blog?
Yes, it's to bring people back to your blog. Because you want people, you can sell from a newsletter, and I have done on many occasions. When I launched the Money Gym, it all went out just as an email. There was nothing on the website about it at all. But really, you ideally want to bring people back to your blog on a regular basis and get them used to moving around your blog. When I say blog here, I'm talking about a website, because that's what blogs are nowadays, websites. So because people, generally speaking, will buy your products and services easier from a website than they would from an e-zine, but that's not.
Oh, interestingly, you taught me something completely different, and I teach everybody exactly the opposite, which is you can't sell from your blog. Yeah, you can sell from your website. You can't sell from your blog, but you can sell from your newsletter. In fact, I only sell from my newsletter and Facebook.
Well,
But you're right, by linking them back to the sales page on the website.
yes, that's exactly it. Yes, because
Yeah.
people aren't going to read. I have a belief that people aren't going to read an awful lot of stuff in an e-zine unless it's entertaining. They're not going to read an awful long sales letter of the kind that sometimes you need to sell something on a website. But
Yeah.
if you have an entertaining, stroke value driven email that brings them back to, and also, you really want to keep your reason is very entertaining. It's something like your blog post that I look forward to every week. So I don't necessarily want to be sold in that, but I don't mind you mentioning things and linking through to somewhere where I can find out more about the sales details of something on the website.
Yeah, so I only sell from my newsletter because that's what you taught me to do. So you've changed your mind, which is fine, absolutely fine.
No, I mean, we're living examples, both of us, that both ways work, and you have to experiment. The other thing is, of course, that your e-zine does is it reminds people that you exist, because they might never visit your website again. If they don't hear from you regularly, they'll forget about you.
So I think there's another aspect to this as well, which is the blog content is in the public domain. Anybody can read it without giving you their most precious of precious jewels, their email address.
Yes.
And once somebody has entrusted me with their precious jewel, I treat them even more tenderly than I do on the front end, as it were. So my blog content's on the front end is in the public domain. Anybody can read it. If they like it enough to want to hear more from me, using your expression, and opt in to my list, they're just in a slightly cozier nest where I care about them just a little bit more, and I try and treat them to something worth reading.
See, that breaks it. That is a challenge for me, because when you say you're creating content that goes into your e-zine that then never sees the light of day, it somehow feels wasted to me.
Yeah, but you're looking at my newsletter now, and it links to our podcast, so it does the marketing there.
Yeah.
It links to the only things I do, so it does the marketing there.
Yeah. It also talks about how our podcast last week was long because I can talk. Ahem.
Well, then I did say ahem, meaning, calling the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny. I'm glad you got it, Nicola.
I've been pointing my little arrow at it as we've been.
I can see. I'm glad you thought that was funny. I'm glad you thought that was funny.
Oh my god! So yes, I think the outcome of this discussion is that it's crucial to appear in people's inboxes regularly, to remind them that you exist. Include something of value in it, and that's true of sales emails too. When you're doing a little mini launch, you should always give value in the email. It's called results in advance. Let people experience results in advance from all of your content, and then bring them to a place where they can consume the rest of the information in a joyful fashion.
So there's one more thing on this, which is what my clients say to me, who write very well often, but struggle to write. So I don't know why. I find it quite easy to write. I can bang out a blog post in about half an hour if I need to. Often I take longer. Certainly the norovirus took me most of yesterday. But they often say to me, I've written one blog post a week and it's a long one and I'm absolutely exhausted. Now you're asking me to write a newsletter as well. And I might be inclined to say, why keep exhausting yourself over writing long blog posts? By all means, write a long one now and again, but write little and often on your blog and tempt people into your newsletter.
Well, also, if you've written a long blog post, your e-zine could be a couple of paragraphs enticing people to click through to the long blog post to read it. As long as you appear in people's inboxes, it doesn't really matter which form you're appearing in. And as I say, you write, you create these beautiful things of beauty, whereas if I had to do that, I simply wouldn't send an e-zine. So I just have a very...
Nicola, I'm so less techie than you. I'm amazed that you're saying that, honestly. But anyway, don't let's go. And one more point on that. I want to make one more point on that, which is, personally, as a reader, I don't want anyone's newsletter to be a list of links to their blog posts, because I follow everybody's blog posts on Feedly. I've read them already. I don't want a weekly roundup. But people often say, who are clients already, that it would be terribly convenient to have a weekly list of roundup to your blogs. But frankly, they're already clients, so why would I do that? I'm trying in my newsletter to tickle people over from being an interested bystander to being a committed client.
Oh, well, there you go. That you just summed it up in a nutshell. You have an absolute clear purpose for your newsletter, and you know exactly who it's aimed at. I am aiming at the people like those people who say that to you. When and I actually love getting a weekly roundup from my favourite people because I'm too damn busy to go and look at their blog. I don't subscribe to anything on a reader, and I want someone to send me an email and alert me if they've put a stonking great blog post up.
Okay.
So I think I think both ways are good. Just go back. Graphic design for me is the most boring thing on the planet, but I like things to look nice. So the easiest way for me to get an e-zine out every week is to make it a simple text sort of conversation with a few peppered with links to things they might have missed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't really want to receive one of those. I think they're quite dull. However, I don't mind the idea of a text newsletter at all. I think what we're agreeing on is it's keeping in touch and reminding people you're there. And I will, Marion taught me this, if you write a stonking blog post, don't think everybody's seen it, stick it in your newsletter, either as a link or as a solo newsletter, and vice versa. If you've written a stonking newsletter, which I thought last week's was, stick it on the blog as well.
Oh, definitely, yes. Leverage your content is a great. And the other thing is, don't forget to. James demonstrates this very well with his Superfast Business podcast. Don't neglect the idea of having a topic to talk about. This might be one for the people who get a bit stuck. Have a topic to talk about. Mind map the main points you want to make. Talk through the mind map. You've just created a podcast episode, and you can just send it off to someone to transcribe and put it on your blog for you. If you're not a writer, that is a brilliant way of creating blog content.
Is there anything else you want to say on email newsletters? Why?
No, just do them. They're really essential.
Yes, okay. Perfect. Just do them. Just do as you're told. Lovely. Love it.
Exactly.
A word from our sponsors. This week's episode was sponsored by Audio Jungle. To get some immediate atmosphere for your website or your recordings, go to ownitthepodcast.com/Audio Jungle.
What's your word of the week then, Judith?
Well, I promise I'm going to bang almost the same drum as I did last week, and I promise I won't do it again. Last week's word was self-care. This week's is health. Having had this, been felled by this norovirus, what it reminded me was that it has to be the number one priority for us all, but especially self-employed people, because I've been lucky this week. I managed to do, I suppose, 90% of my client work, but what I realised when I was sort of lying in my sick bed and groaning was, without your health, everything else is irrelevant. My joie de vivre just flies out the window. Your quality of life and my quality of life and my intent to live until I'm at least 100 just evaporates. You go, oh, that's it, let me die now. And you mean it in a way. It's like, oh, I wouldn't want to live if I was sick. And when my, health is compromised, it makes me realise how, first and foremost, it must be the only thing that counts. When you're young and invincible, or when you're lucky, you think you're going to live forever and you feel fine. But you realise when you get older that, I don't want to talk about being old or sick either, but as you become, more of a grown-up, you realise that this is absolutely your own responsibility. Now, I don't see a way to have avoided this norovirus because I don't know what I did to get it, but it does mean that my health is even more important to me than it ever was, I think. And a bout of this helps me very much to understand those clients that I have who live with chronic health challenges.
Yes, and in fact, it comes after we talked about Stephen Hawking last week, because he had the most horrendous health challenges, and he didn't lose his will to live. He must have had dark moments of the soul, though, mustn't he?
Yes, but he pushed on through. Good point. Yeah.
So, what are you doing differently as a result of this?
Well, nothing yet, because I actually haven't finished dealing with the onslaught. What can you do differently as a result? You can remember. Well, when something ghastly happens to you. Have you ever been on the motorway when a tyre blows?
No, thank God.
Okay, so I've seen it happen to other cars, and it's not happened to me. But what you do is you pull over to the inside lane and slow down, and you trog along like a little old lady in the inside lane. You think, oh God, driving's very, very dangerous. I need to be more careful.
Yeah.
And about But about 20 minutes later, you're putting out to the middle and the outside lane again because you're over it. You assimilate it all very quickly. And even as I was writing the long story yesterday afternoon, I thought, well, should I start rinsing my produce and all this kind of stuff? But later that night, I was feeling so much better. You think, oh, I know I'm never going to do that. So you have this. It's a bit like when somebody dies and you go to a funeral and you think, oh, I'm going to live my life differently, blah, blah, blah. But quite quickly, you just sink back into the old ways you've always done everything. And if I start washing my produce 3 meals a day, every day for the rest of my life, when I've never done that, why am I doing that when I've had food poisoning, once a decade and the norovirus once? I'm not sure it makes any sense. I'm not a food hygienist. I have spent a lot of time in the last 24 hours looking at pictures of bacteria growing on agar dishes and things. I can't imagine I'll change very well. I'll tell you what, I'll tell you the answer. My awareness has been increased. I won't be frightened if and when I ever get it again because I know what it is now. I would never go on a cruise ship or, if I could help it, into a hospital or anywhere where this was going to rip through it. And generally, as described in my piece, because I work at home and never see anybody, and I don't have interaction with public transport or small children, I'm quite, immune to most stuff. But of course, the fact that I'm not exposed to it makes me more vulnerable, funnily enough, because it's the getting of things and the recovering of things that helps you become more robust, more resilient health-wise.
Yes. As someone who's just about to get on a cruise ship, thank you very much for that.
Well, Nicola, what you can do on a cruise ship is I would avoid anything that looks like a bagged salad.
Yeah, they don't do bagged salads.
Well, no, but it might have come from a bag.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so bagged salads, anything where they can't wash the thing out of little crinkles. So, for instance, something I read last night was comparing the bacteria on a chicken breast to a bag of spinach or leaves, washed leaves, and you'd think the chicken breast would be the one, but no, of course they can cook that and kill it. They don't do that with the raw salads. It's fruit salad and vegetables. So if it's been skinned or peeled or washed, you're probably all right. Even washing with water reduces the risk quite a lot. That thing we've always done all our lives about avoiding ice when overseas. I'm not sure I would go take it that far. Just be careful, darling, and take plenty of diorolite with you.
Right, I will do.
I don't think it's going to happen because the ships, as soon as it happens on the ships, they take you to dock, get you off, and scrub the place down. I think you'll be fine, darling. Obviously,
there was an incident last year, wasn't there, of a ship with Nora?
Yeah. It does, because what you've got is that closed community where and the hospitals are the same, the Superdome after Hurricane Katrina, where people are bunched together in unsanitary conditions. It spreads like a whippet on everything anybody's touched. So it's, your keyboard. I mean, I'm sitting here now, I've got my elbows on the desk. It's everything, every surface you've touched. Don't put your fingers up your nose is another one, because that's the one where, or in your mouth, because that's how you pick it up on a surface and put it into your system. And one more thing, antibacterial gel's rubbish. Proper old-fashioned hand washing vigorously while singing a verse of Happy Birthday. Particular attention to the webbing between the fingers.
Okay, that's why surgeons still scrub with a carbolic then.
Yeah, scrub like somebody you see on ER. Yes.
Yeah. I'll bear that in mind. My word of the week is mastermind.
I'm listening.
Now, masterminds can take many forms. They can take the form of going on a ship full of 400 internet marketers, which is what we'll be doing next week, where there are several mastermind sessions that we'll all be attending. It can take the form of going up to Pizza and Profits up at midnight, just to hang out in a casual fashion and talk to other marketers. I've got my personal mastermind, not my personal mastermind, it's the mastermind I host and facilitate in February, which is 6 people who come together once a quarter to talk about their businesses and help each other. And then there's the masterminding of hanging out in things like Facebook groups. That's a very good way to mastermind. And I'm always astonished when I talk to clients and I say, are you in, for example, High Performing Women or Internet Marketing Super Friends? And they say no, because the Facebook group, well, you've got a couple of groups, haven't you, Judith? And
I have, and I love them. Yeah.
People really are incredibly generous and giving of help if you ask for advice in one of these masterminds. And I would strongly encourage anyone listening, if you're not a member of a mastermind online, go and find yourself one. And for James, $79 a month. I was thinking it's peanuts to pay to be in a mastermind of top performing people and get access to someone like him who will help you. Sounds like I'm selling his program here, but I can't help but have been inspired. And I suppose the sensible thing to do would not to be have mentioned who he was, but I'm not a mean-spirited person like that. So yeah, masterminding is brilliant. But now the second challenge people have with masterminding is once they're in one, it's asking for help as the challenge and making themselves look vulnerable. And perhaps, you see a lot in mastermind groups, don't you, Judith? I know this is probably a stupid question, and everyone comes in and says, no, it's not a stupid question, and then they help.
Yes.
You've got to be able to ask for the help of your mastermind members, haven't you?
Yes. And actually, I think that's okay, because quite quickly the team become bonded and they know that together they're greater than the sum of their parts, and somebody knows something and somebody else knows something else, and you are reminded, you the member are reminded what you know that other people don't, and vice versa. I think, and it's up to the leader to create an environment where it's all right to be vulnerable and stupid, not that you are either of those things.
Yeah, and I often act the stupid one just to make it okay.
Me too, Nicola. In our workshops in days gone by, I would ask questions from the back room I perfectly well knew the answers to, because I knew people in the room didn't and weren't asking.
What's impressed this week then?
Oh, I think you're going to like this one. I'm going to recommend a book. Marion recommended it to me, actually, and it's my favourite type of book. Let me tell you what my favourite type of book is. It costs £1.99. I can read it tonight and implement it tomorrow, which is what I did last Thursday and Friday and with last week's newsletter. It's called Hooked on You, The Genius Way to Make Anybody Read Anything. And it's written by somebody called Ian Harris, who is a copywriter, but rather off-piste, rather alternative, written very nicely. I remember 3 things that he taught me. Isolate the first sentence. So, hit them between the eyes in that first sentence. Grab them in that first sentence. Start with a story and bridge to the sale. And lots of other things that we know already, actually. But it's always good to be reminded of the stuff that you know but you haven't actually done or you're not doing right now, isn't it? Yeah, great book. Hooked on You, The Genius Way to Make Anybody Read Anything, which, of course, is my main goal in life, to get people to read my words.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. I'll have to check that one out.
I think you'll like it, actually. And who or what's impressed you, Nicola?
Well, British dramas impressed me, but that's not what I want to talk about particularly. Broadchurch, Silent Witness, and just some marvellous drama on the TV at the moment. Two of them on the same night, funnily enough. So you have to have your wits about you with the record thing.
Yes.
But the other thing I've been particularly impressed with is a chap called Ryan Levesque, who is he's bursting onto the scene with a book called Ask. And it's all about surveying your list in a different kind of way to enable you to speak specifically to segments of your list who have expressed an interest in a particular thing. He's got some really nice, I think it's finished now, the launch, but I'm sure he'll be back. There's some really nice ways of looking at it differently, and he illustrated it rather well in the saying, have you ever sent out a survey to say, what's your biggest challenge with business? You get a lot of quite general responses that don't really tell you much, unless you've got a really particularly articulate responder. But what he said is, imagine you've got a room full of people and you're asking them all which takeaway they'd like. Pretty fitting in lieu of your illness this week.
Yes.
What takeaway would you like? Everyone will sit there and go, no, I don't know. What do you fancy? You decide, But if you ask people, what takeaway don't you want? What don't you want to eat? People are much more likely to be able to answer that question. And if you ask them what they had for dinner last night, they're much more likely to give you a straight answer on that one. So it's about formulating your survey questions in a way that makes it easy for people to answer without having to think too much about it. And so that impressed me, and I invested in his program, which was very reasonable. And
how do you spell his surname, Nicola?
Levesque. It could be Levesque, or it might be Laves.
Okay. I couldn't understand what you were saying, actually. Levesque.
But his book is coming soon. In fact, I'm going to be out interviewing for the podcast because his book is coming in March, and his book is just called Ask.
Okay.
I would highly recommend you check it out when you see it, because
Marvellous.
it's very different to a lot of the stuff I've seen on, generally.
I must say, I've never ever been able to ask my list, what's your biggest challenge about X? I think it's the dullest question on the planet, so I'm quite pleased to hear you say that.
Yeah. And he's got some interesting ways about doing list segmentation, which prompted me into action, because I've got a big old sprawling autoresponder in Infusionsoft that was following the Andre Chaperon method of telling them a story, that soap opera story that went on endlessly, and I've stripped it all out and started to use these surveying techniques to see what people actually really want. So
yeah,
which
I always think it would be wonderful, and you know me, I speak as I find, to be able to ask your list, what is it you would actually buy from me?
you can, if you follow Ryan's technique, eventually. There's 3 different surveys he puts his list through, and he asks the first one very quickly after people opt in, because that's called bucketing people into their interests, so that you could.
Okay.
So generally speaking, so for example, when you send your easy now, it will go out to everyone. But when you start to do the promotion for a new training course or a new item of interest that's just gone into your membership site, you would specifically target the people who've expressed an interest in that first.
Yeah.
Before moving on to the rest. So anyway, it was very refreshing. It was very new concepts that not everyone else is talking about. So I really enjoyed that.
Okay. Very good. And on the topic of Broadchurch, I'm not doing season 2. On the first episode, marvellous shock horror from the, the guilty box. But all it did was give us permission to rehash the same story all over again.
Yeah, it's just such fine acting though, Judith. I can just.
Well, it is. I agree. They are good actors, but it wasn't enough for me. I just dropped out that night, along with 1.5 million other viewers.
Oh, so they all got a bit disappointed when they realised it was the same story and not a new.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I can understand that. But it gives me an excuse to turn off from the computer. So.
On the other hand, you're definitely right about Silent Witness. And that song that you were looking for at the end of episode 1 of this week's 2-parter reminded me, I don't know if you watch any of the Scandinavian drama, but I will try and find the music from that and share it with you, because I think you'll like it.
Yeah, it's lovely music. It
was good music, yeah.
To the iPad that I'd just shut down, and I was Googling it frantically.
Yeah, and you found it. Well done.
Yeah, brilliant. So is that us done then?
We're done.
Oh my God, how amazing.
Well, I think that's good, because actually I think last week's was rather too long, so we've kept it nice and short, and yeah, good. We've been efficient.
Marvellous. Well, I'll see you same time, same place next week then, except it won't be the same.
All right, beloved.
It'll be.
Yeah, no, it won't. No, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a moment.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.